Here's another letter. It started when I was 6. My dad is my first memory. My dad was beating on the front door. He came back from the casino drunk and was beating my mom, and he went outside to smoke, and she locked him out, and he knocked the door off the hinges and came in and slapped her again. It was the start of the helplessness inside me. Only a few months later, my father's anger took him from me. He killed a man. I never found out who he killed. My mom never talked about it. My mom was a good, strong woman. She took care of the kids by herself until I was about 11. That's when things started to get bad again. My mom always told me stories about my dad. He was an insane ghost disciple. Folk nation. Just like his dad was. I was born in Gaston Point and in a city full of hoods. I was in the projects in Gulfport, easily the worst place to be. But I did have one advantage over the other people in my neighborhood. I was white, but I was also a born-in gang member. My father and grandfather named hushed rooms. So I followed in their footsteps as an insane gangster disciple. At 11, I picked it up, and my mom met a man named Steve, just one more in a long line of abusive men, and he hated me. He would whip me all over with whatever was in reach. So I stayed in the streets with my gang members. They was my family, and I was theirs. They gave me cocaine and showed me how to make it into crack. And when the money started coming, so did the girls. At 11, a lot happened. First, I started gangbanging. Then I started cooking and selling crack. Then I lost my virginity at a house party. She was 16, I was 11, and me and 3 guys all had her at the same time. So I guess for a long time it hurt my perspective on women. Then I started smoking weed every day. Then someone told me if you smoked a cigarette after you get high, it got you higher. So I started smoking cigarettes. So I was 11 with $1,500 and 2 ounces of cocaine. So I bought a .380 revolver, and 2 weeks later one of my gang members named Face got shot and crippled from the waist down. So me and a few other of my gang members, one of which was my best friend Razorblade, masked up and hit the streets looking for blood. I don't know what happened to the guy, but I shot him in the stomach. I jumped out of the car and I started shooting. I don't know if he died or not, but I shot him and I felt no emotion for the man. I could tell you 100 stories like this. So when I was 13, I was caught with 10 grams of crank and a .38 snub nose and was sent to a juvenile prison. They gave me 50% years as a first offender. I was sent to Walnut Grove. I was scared, but you would not have known it from the way that I acted. That's where I met another insane gangster disciple. He showed me how to act in prison. He was doing multiple life sentences for 3 murders. I had 3 months left on my sentence, and I was to be released. A riot between my gang members and the vice lords. I stabbed a vice lord in the ribs. Luckily, I missed anything vital. I was scared he would tell, but he didn't. So I went home, and my gang members heard that I was doing good work during my incarceration, so they made me chief enforcer over the entire set. Me being 15, this was unheard of, but nobody questioned it. I had probation upon my release. I was only out for a few months when I got caught with weed, and during my arrest the cop slamming my face on the trunk, and I pushed him off with my elbow, and they gave me battery on a law enforcement officer. But charge was dropped, but the weed charge still stuck to me. I was sent to Parchment. They put me in the ST6 dorm, stands for Security Threat Group, and I had to stay in that same room for 2 years. So when I was 17, I got out. By this time, I had found out I got a girl pregnant before I went into prison, named, we'll leave that out, and she named our daughter. She gave her my last name, and I was actually, for the first time in my life, happy because of something good. But like me, she was part of the gangster nation, and she introduced me to all white set of gangsters called the, I'm going to leave out these names, specializing in gun trafficking and meth cells, and unlike other gangsters, they also did the drugs they sold. I began doing this very thing, and since I was still in probation, I started Spice. By the time I turned 18, I was back in prison for possession of meth, which again violated my parole. I only had 9 months to do, so I got out, and when I was 19 and went right back to using, since this time I had no parole or probation, and I went to gangbanging hard, to the point where my superior gang member told me to calm down. I did not listen, and I got shot by some Latin kings. My mom had moved to Florida a few years before, and she begged me to move in with her in some place. I can't read. I did, but could not get a job, so I could not get high, which was a huge problem. I robbed a house and was sent back to prison and did not get out until I was 21. And I then met a girl. I fell in love with her, but was still doing meth regularly. I wound up in jail, this time for the domestic violence and resisting without violence. That is where I met Sean Stuller and could feel God. It had been so long since I felt it that I forgot the way it brought, and it made me want to be a different person. I'm human, we all make mistakes, but you can't live in a past, only look towards the future. I'm not perfect by any means, but every day, through God, I strive to be a better person, and through God anything can happen. If He can help someone as helpless as me change, what can He do for you?